Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Today's Cut the Clutter is about the NRC process in Assam. I know that many of you have been asking me to do this. I also feel that this is something that I can speak about in some detail, partly because or mainly because I have followed this story for a very long time. In fact, even before many of you were born, I was the Indian Express's correspondent in the Northeast between 1981 and 83. That is between 36 and 38 years back. Or if you count backwards, 38 and 36 years back. But that is when action was really on. Assam movement was on. The supply of oil from Assam. Assam had India's only onshore crude oil. That supply had been blocked because pipelines had been blocked. The state was in a complete disarray. The kind of standstill you see in Srinagar right now, that used to happen at the wave of a flag by the movement leaders in Assam. So much so that the idea of people's curfew, where the movement leaders declared a curfew for everybody and everybody followed, was founded there. As was then the other call, which is that if the government called a curfew, a call to everybody to come out. The entire population of the state will come out. It was that popular a movement. Now, I will take you back there, but before that, I will read out a quote from you. And I will tell you that our judges, our courts, write very literary, very long judgments. But they work very hard at those judgments. And this was a judgment written by among two of our finest and the wisest and the most well-read judges. One, Chief Justice Gogoi, who's finishing his tenure soon, and second, Rohinton Nariman. And in an order in 2014 on this NRC process, when they took over the NRC process and put it under the Supreme Court's supervision, they wrote a para which is something like, a prophet is without honor in his own country. A prophet is without honor in his own country. Substitute citizen for prophet, and you will get the gist of the various writ petitions on the citizenship issue in Assam. So, I am now doing what the judges ask us to do. A citizen is without honor in his own country or her own country, and then you know what happens. So, which citizen was this? This was the genuine Indian citizen who felt that I don't have honor because too many non-citizens have the same rights as I do. Or maybe there were many others who were citizens but who were not sure because their citizenship was under doubt. So they were also citizens without honor. So what the court tried to do was to carry out a new process of checking out everybody in Assam. Over 3 crore people, 3.25 crore almost now. Each one was checked out for documentation. And that documentation was to see whether you are an Indian citizen or not. Now, there is a catch there because there is a definition to Indian citizen there. Indian citizen there, because Assam has had a long history of migration. So, Indian citizen was defined as somebody who or whose ancestors, parents, grandparents had come into India after 1971. 1971 was the cutoff year, and I will explain to you why 1971 as the cutoff. So 1971, remember, was not that recent. 1971 was 48 years ago, almost 5 decades ago. So somebody could have come in 1970 and had grandchildren by now. Or somebody could have come in January 1972 and had grandchildren by now. So this is a lot of time. So the idea that you can look at evidence that far back and no further was very complicated, which means you had to prove that some ancestors of yours had come into Assam, India, in the territory of Assam before 1971. At 1971 also, this was the end of 1971. I told you, I'll tell you the reason 1971. The reason is that 1971 is when the big India-Pakistan war took place and Bangladesh was created. Because the presumption was that until Bangladesh was created, essentially Hindus were persecuted in East Pakistan. So if they came into India as refugees, India could not have said no to them. But after 1971, when an India-friendly government came into being in Bangladesh, then they had no right to migrate. They should then have stayed back where they were in Bangladesh, and anybody who came in after 1971, therefore, was a foreigner. This 1971 was a cutoff that was established after long negotiations between Rajiv Gandhi and the leaders of the Assam anti-foreigner Assam movement in 1985. It was a landmark agreement, and the movement gave up agitating. In fact, Congress vacated the space for them. There was a fresh election held, assembly was dissolved, and the leaders of the movement, 1985, won that assembly election and became leaders of their state. That is Praful Manta, Bhrigu Phukar and the rest, including Sarbanan Sonowal, who is currently the chief minister. He was part of that group. All these people have come to the BJP, which is a different story. So that's how 71 comes in. Another date was discussed before that. Assam leaders had demanded 1967. Again, why 67? Because after the 65 war, there had again been a migration of Hindus coming into India and Muslims going into Pakistan. So they said we'll accommodate up to 61 but no further, but in negotiations 71 was 71 was accepted. It's just that the agreement to carry out a new NRC process, to constitute a new national register of citizens for the first time since 1951. So 1951, first NRC, 1971, the cutoff year, 1985, the Rajiv AGPA's ASU Accord, or the Assam Accord. So even in 85, you were going back 14 years to 71. But 2019 now, you are going back 48 years to 71. So this process has started 3 decades too late. And that degree of difficulty shows in the results that we have had. Because there was a presumption that there will be maybe 8, 9, 10 million foreigners who will, nobody quite expected that they'll be thrown out of India or they'll be driven back to Bangladesh. Nobody will be pushed back into Bangladesh. But there was a fanciful notion that somehow they'll be disenfranchised. A bit like Turkish workers in Germany. I think they are a bit like that. I don't know if their status is changed right now, which means you can have all the rights except the right to vote. Because the fear here was that foreigners or outsiders have come in and taken political power in our state. That process has now come a cropper. Because what's happened is that the first list, which came out in July 2018, had shown about 6 million, about 60 lakh people as suspected foreigners. That's nearly 20% of the population. Still not up to the expectations of those who had imagined a much bigger invasion, demographic invasion, but still a large number. Then it came down to, it was initially 6 million, then it came to, that was the estimate, came down to 4 million in 2018 July, but now after scrutiny it's come to 1.9 million, just 19 lakh people, that is 6% of Assam. And remember, there is one appeal still going to happen. So when that appeal happens, chances are the way the strike rate is, about half may again go, because there are many cases where in a family the parent is cleared but the child isn't cleared. So that's an unsustainable process, an unsustainable thing. Many will go, but there is another catch there. And the catch is that a large number of these remaining 19 lakh also are Hindus. Now, what's the problem? If they are also foreigners, if they came from Bangladesh after 1971, they should be sent back. But can a BJP government do it? No BJP government can do it. So how to then have your cake and eat it too? I don't want to, if I use a Bengali metaphor, maybe it will not be liked very much given the context of the Northeast, but you can't have your sandesh and eat it too. So the BJP then said, all right, we will amend the Citizenship Act, whereby any Hindus who've come in will be automatically given Indian citizenship. That's not the deal that the Assamese wanted. Because the Assamese were originally and fundamentally not after the Muslims only. They were about, their agitation was about having their ethnic identity political control over their own destinies, their own sort of exclusive space for the ethnic Assamese. It's just that large parts of their land were so open that two immigrants came in from all over the place. Now, many of these immigrants who came in the past, many were tribals, tea garden workers. They essentially became Assamese. They speak Assamese language. But Bengalis who came in from what is Bangladesh now, they remained Bengali. So many districts in Assam have always been Bengali majority. That's districts in Kachar, Karimganj, then a couple of districts really lower down in Assam. Once again, it's very complicated. That's why it's taking some time to declutter it. Most of the Hindus who came in from Bangladesh or East Pakistan continued to speak Bengali, work in Bengali, live in Bengali, and stay also in these well-defined Bengali majority districts. But a lot of the Muslims, especially Muslim peasants who came from Bangladesh or before that East Bengal, essentially from the districts of Mymensingh, Sylhet, etc., they were very hardy farmers. So they came into the main valley, Brahmaputra Valley of Assam, picked up empty spaces, particularly the floodplains of Brahmaputra or the river islands of Brahmaputra, what is called as Char lands, CHAR. That's how they formed. There are large river islands in the Brahmaputra. It's a huge river. And they started cultivating there in lean season because they are very good farmers. And soon enough, they learned Assamese. So linguistically, they became more Assamese than Bengali. So most of the old Bangladeshis or East Pakistanis that you find in the Brahmaputra Valley today speak Assamese like any other Assamese. Now, what do you do with them? At the same time, within Assam also, among the ethnic Assamese, they were Muslims. They were ethnic Assamese Muslims. So when the movement started in 1978-79, it started when in the election of Mangoldoi, which is on the north bank of Brahmaputra, a revision of electoral rolls suddenly saw an increase of 60,000 voters. So impression spread that too many people had come in from outside as infiltrators, and they had infiltrated the electoral rolls and they will take over political power. So when this agitation began, then the presumption was that there's been a massive invasion by Bangladeshis, Muslims as well as Hindus. All of them should go out. So the initial and original impulse of the Assam movement was ethnic, linguistic. And then it got caught up first between Hindu and Muslim, because when the RSS came in, RSS was very active at that time. In fact, this is a book I wrote on Assam. This is my last surviving copy called Assam, a Valley Divided, which has a reference to a conversation with K.S. Sudarshan, who later became RSS chief, but then was RSS's Bauddhik Pramukh, the intellectual chief, who had come in, and he and his people had sought me out because I was an active reporter there for the Indian Express. And they sat with me, in fact, in my hotel room, and they ruled the fact that the Assamese agitators were not understanding that they should be attacking only Muslims were infiltrators, Hindus were refugees. And the line that Mr. Sudarshan used was, "Arey bhai, Hindu to arakshit hai. Hindu is unsafe, so they have to go." So they started working on that. They worked on that for about 35 years, and they achieved a fair degree of success. In the process, BJP became strong. BJP did not have leaders there, so BJP imported wholesale, as they often do, their entire leadership from the AGP, which was the party that the original Assam movement leaders morphed into. So people like Sabaran, Sonowal, Himanta Biswa Sarma, these are all old Assam agitation leaders and workers. So BJP and RSS imported their leadership from there, and they exported their philosophy into Assam. So Assam now was left with this big confusion. A lot of people thought, yes, Muslims were a threat, but at the same time, no ethnic Assamese really accepted the fact that Bengali Hindus were okay, that additional numbers of Bengali Hindus were okay, just because they were Hindus and they were refugees. So while they could dislike the Muslim more, and that dislike went up when Badruddin Ajmal set up his Muslim party in AUDF in Assam. At the same time, that RSS failed to bring about that commonness of cause and or build any affection between the ethnic Assamese and the Bengali Hindus. That is today one of the big problems, because one, this NRC process has not thrown up many Muslim immigrants, many Muslim infiltrators. So the whole idea that Muslims had come and carried out a demographic invasion, somebody used the expression Lebensraum as well, unfortunately, that has now been proven to be a complete myth. Like it or not, that story is over. BJP, some leaders are saying we'll hold another one and another one. I think in good grace, Supreme Court of India should say this is the last one, because we supervised it, there cannot be another one. So this should be the end. So first of all, there is disappointment that too few Muslims have been found. Second, there is a problem that quite a few Hindus have been found. So what do you do with them? So if the center now amends the Citizenship Act and says they are fine, then the ethnic Assamese are angry, and the old impulse that we are being swamped by outsiders comes back in. So that becomes a problem. So you are now left in a situation, it's an unfortunate metaphor to use in this place, but na khuda hi mila na visale sanam, na idhar ke rahe, na udhar ke rahe. Kuch nahi mila. It also tells you that there was a bit of a mythology. Now, what is it that we call a mythology? A mythology was that systematically over the last 30, 40, 50 years, Muslims from Bangladesh have been coming and invading Assam and Bengal, Indian Bengal, and other parts of the northeast, and then going into other parts of the country and taking over. And there are so many Bangladeshis in the country. So all Bengali Muslims who look like Bengali Muslims, who talk like Bengali Muslims, were instinctively considered infiltrators who had come in illegally. Now, there is something that I thought I'll tell you about. There is a problem of Muslim migration into Assam, but it's not a recent problem. So there is a quote that I will read out to you from the 1931 report of the Census of India. 1931, every 10 years we have a census. There will be one in 2021 now. So 1931, the Superintendent of Census Operations in Assam was C.S. Mullen, an Englishman. And what is it that he's saying? 1931. He's saying probably the most important event in the province during the last 25 years, an event moreover which seems likely to alter permanently the whole future of Assam, 1931, and to destroy the whole structure of Assamese culture and civilization, has been the invasion of a vast horde of land-hungry immigrants. 1931, I'm saying again and again. Vast horde of land-hungry immigrants, mostly Muslims, from the districts of East Bengal and in particular from Mymensingh. And then he goes on to say something, wheresoever the carcass, there the vultures will be gathered together. Where there is wasteland, thither flock the Mymensingias. So I've taken you back to the root of the problem. Root of the problem does not lie in 1971. It goes back almost 100 years back, because poor people, hardy people came in and they were of a different ethnic stock. That is the problem right now. So that state, unfortunately now, is caught in a very problematic situation. The ethnic Assamese are caught between indigenous and Indian, because if they say indigenous, that this is Assamese ethnicity, culture, language, Assam for the Assamese, then there is no basis in the Indian law or constitution to provide that. There is no law or no provision in the constitution that says one part of the country shall belong to one ethnicity. If you apply the test of citizenship, which is the only test available to you, which is what the court has used now, then you end up in a situation where more Hindus get caught in the net than Muslims. So, and the total numbers in any case are very small. So, indigenous people haven't got their protection. So, the indigenous impulse has not been answered. The nationalist impulse, which is the BJP and many Assamese converted by the BJP now, The nationalist impulse they had of driving out the Muslims has not been answered. On the other hand, the constitutional impulse now that just as you disenfranchise or declare non-citizens Muslims caught in this net, you also do the same thing to the Hindus because constitution doesn't let you make that distinction. They've also got caught in a jam. So this has been a lose exercise. The only thing I would say is this exercise is a victory for the Indian judicial and constitutional system because you've carried out this very complex, long, very credible exercise, and hats off to this officer Hajela and his team who've done it. It's been a very tough exercise, but it has proved that a lot of this talk about Muslim invasion, etc., was just that talk. So where do we go from here? Now you have this NRC. You can't fight it. These are the citizens of India who happen to be living in a state called Assam. Now you can divide that state of Assam. That option was available to the Assamese people again in the mid-30s, that you allow a state of Bengali speakers to be carved out of this area. In fact, it was the Assamese who got themselves carved out as an Assamese state because the district of Sylhet had been made part of Assam in the late 19th century because Sylhet was a much richer district, and the British thought that that would make Assam economically more viable because Sylhet had a lot of plantations and things. But Sylhet was almost purely Bengali. So in the mid-40s, as India was heading for partition and independence, the leaders of Assam, particularly led by Gopinath Bordoloi, who was then called Prime Minister of Assam, so it wasn't just in Kashmir that you had that designation, he wanted a purer Assam, where Assamese ethnicity will be in control and Assamese culture will be in control. So he was quite happy to let the district of Sylhet go to East Bengal. And remember, just as there was a referendum in Junagadh and referendum in Northwest Frontier Province, a referendum was also held in the district of Sylhet, which chose to go with East Pakistan, which then became Bangladesh. So Assam then became much purer Assamese. But then what happened? After the partition, migration started again. Essentially now Hindus. A lot of the Muslims had come in the past, a lot of the Hindus, and then Muslims came in also looking for opportunity. So it's in this mishmash that once in 1956, a suggestion was again made to carve out a Bengali majority state out of Assam. But that was then rejected, that Assam should not be divided further. So if you look at districts of Kachar, Dhubri, Gwalpada, many of those districts were at that point Bengali majority. Kachar, etc., are still Bengali majority, as is Tripura adjacent to that. So those stories are now over. Again, if you go right back to the Central Legislative Assembly in mid-30s, there was a leader of Assam, B.K. Das, who was a Bengali obviously, who actually said the state should not be called Assam anymore because Bengalis are in a majority there. The division of Assam to let Sylhet go was an answer to that process. So this is too complicated a history. It's taken me 20 odd minutes now. Even if I speak for 20 more, there will still be layers to lift from this. The fact is, an issue has to find closure somewhere. I think with this NRC, this issue should find closure. Now from here, repair work has to start. Repair work has to start within the ethnic Assamese minds that look, this is the diversity that's a given. You have to live with this diversity, or you can campaign to get an even smaller state. So let your Bengali speaking districts go as you had let Sylhet go. The other thing is a lesson to the BJP and RSS that this is a very complicated state. I have covered riots in 1983 when I was posted there. Just as in Delhi, Muslims were killed, there were also many riots. There was Khairabari, there was Sawalkho, there was many places where in fact Bengali Hindus were slaughtered by ethnic Assamese Hindus, tribals, and in some cases even ethnic Assamese Muslims who had joined them. So Hindus had killed Hindus, Muslims had killed Muslims. It was a free-for-all. 7,000 people died in a fortnight. So this is not something, this is not a fire that you want to light once again. So Supreme Court has done us all a favor by running this exercise. This exercise has been successfully completed. BJP people who are making noises about doing this again and doing it once in 10 years, Supreme Court now has to say this is the last one, there won't be another one. And those BJP leaders who talk about doing this in other states and other cities, it's a good idea to have a national register of citizens. But please do not have the expectation that there are tens of millions of Bangladeshi Muslims floating in the system. Because once you do that, then even the process of building a new NRC, which India needs after 1951, will then become a polarizing, divisive, anti-minority process. So once again, lessons learned, don't do this again. This is now over, and I do hope that my old friends in Assam also get a sense of closure with this.